All right, I was just playing around with these. I have a bunch of old cams, and I thought you guys might like to see this. And I was kind of wondering what the lift and duration is on 'em. I've had them for years. They they're actually in pretty good shape. It's just like grease on there. I oiled them many years ago. It's kind of sticky oil, so they clean off real easily. And these could be used. And if you've seen the price of cams lately, maybe you'd probably want to do the same thing. So what I did is I mocked this thing up here. I got this little thing from Harbor Freight a long time ago, and then I got myself a little protractor type of thing to tell your degrees. It kind of works, but it'd be nice if I had something clear that I could put on here, or a bigger wheel and a little notch so I can really get an accurate reading. I'm not going to get a really perfect reading on these cams, but this will help me just to understand what they are, and I'll just write down the base numbers on them. And that way I can just put a little tag on them, and then I know what it is. So if I want to use it someday, I'll use it. If not, I don't know what to do with it. But anyway, let's take a look. I'll tell you a couple of different ways to measure them. One is you can use like a caliper like this here in inches, and you measure the height. I mean, you can just use that. It's not going to give you. You could get a micrometer out, get a more accurate measuring, but you're not going to get a really accurate measuring with any of this really, other than maybe better with the dial indicator. So you take your lobe height, okay, then you subtract this number here, and it should come out. It should come out to around 430 is what I think I've got. Let me just check with the dial indicator. I'm going to get a little bit different results because I'm measuring the actual bottom of the cam, not the sides, which might be a little bit different. With that, if you got a bunch of cams laying around, or whatever, you want to check them to see what they are. That's kind of a quick way to check the lift on it, so you'll know whether it's in the stratosphere or not. Maybe it's way too big. You don't want to use it. So if you kind of get the way the cam specs work, let's just kind of look at that. So if you see here, this angle 120, and it says the specs are 397 cam lift and then 435 valve lift with 1-to-1 rockers, and then 294 degrees of advertised duration. Okay, come on, be good. And 253 degrees of duration at 0.050. So advertised duration is the actual duration that's usable. Okay, the measured duration is 253. So a lot of your cam specs are going to show the 294 number. So if you go on the Samba website, I believe they show the advertised duration, which is the duration that you'll be going by. But we can only measure this one, the 253. Okay, we go by the degrees of duration at 0.050. So that's the only thing we can really measure. Because what the other one is okay, let's say if you had this in a case and you had lifters on it, okay, this is good for just about any engine. VWs are going to be slightly different, and we'll go over all that stuff real quick. So if it's in the case, or if in the crankshaft's in the car or whatever, your lifter has, is probably that big or whatever, right? And so it's going to lift up sooner than this dial indicator does, because the dial indicator is just one little blip. Okay, that little area right there that it's touching is just touching that area, where the lifter is, whatever, that big around. And the only way you'll get the advertised duration is if you have a lifter on there. So you'd have to have it in an engine and spin it around and check the actual push rod as it goes up and down, and then check the duration using the crankshaft to do so. So you'd have to have it put together in a case. You could mock something up if you wanted to and do that, but we're not going to go there because it's just, we just got a few cams we're going to measure out and put them back on the shelf. So the first thing we're going to check is lift. It's pretty easy to do. I've got two, these are for my press. Okay, then I've just clamped this to that, so it just, I just can't touch anything. And I kind of zeroed it out. We'll zero it out again. Get it zeroed out, because I might have moved it a little tiny bit. It's kind of at zero when I move it a little bit, right? So we're going to go and run up the lift, so you can kind of see that it starts to go up fairly far. So if I'm measuring here on both sides, I'm not going to get a real accurate measurement, right? So it goes up now, and what we're going to do is we're just going to go all the way around. 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is a big one. 4, 428. We'll go back down to make sure we get 0. 428. Oh, we go this way. Let's go. Go back to down to 0. Does it go back to 0? So I'd say that's a 428 lift. So let's write that down. That is not the valve lift. That is the lift. Because remember, Volkswagens have 1.1 rockers. So the stock rockers are 1.1. You can put 1.25s on them, but probably not with this cam. This cam's pretty big. So like if you see here, it says 397 cam lift. This is an angle 120. So this one's bigger than a 120. And the 0.435 valve lift. So the valve lift is with 1-to-1 rockers. So if you add 1.1 to 1 rockers, that's a lot bigger cam. We'll go over those numbers in a second. Okay, now we want to find out what the duration is. So we're going to do the same thing. Going to rotate it around very carefully. We got it zeroed out. We're going to rotate it around until we hit 50 thousandths. Because remember, it was 0.050. Okay, so that's where you start your duration, right there. So I've already done a mark. I'm not very good mark, but I did one. I'd say it's probably just supposed to be over a little bit, right? It should be just, it's not quite straight up and down. So I should put like to do this right, I should put like a square right here, right? So we're square to the table. So yeah, it should be over a little bit, but we're not going to get it perfectly accurate, guys. We're just not going to, but we're just, kind of just coming up with something. So it's probably just a little bit more duration than what we're going to measure. I'd say that's probably 1 or 2 degrees. So now we're at 0.050. So that's 50 thousandths, right? We did our where the point where we're at 0.050 on one side. Now we've gotten to the other side of the cam, and we're going to come back the other direction, and we're going to go to 0.050 on that side, right to 0.050. Okay. Then I marked this already again. So look, if we've got 0.050, that's where we are 50 thousandths off of lobe center, or off of whatever, when it starts to ramp up, 50 thousandths. This should be straight up and down. So I'm going to say right in the dead center of the blob that we've got there now, this yellow blob, is the other side. Okay, so if you look at durations, they're off of crankshaft rotation. So your duration is so many degrees of duration off of crankshaft duration, not off the cam. So the crankshaft spins twice the speed of the cam. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out between here and there the angle using something like this. And like I said, if you had a degree wheel on here, you could just bolt on the cam. It'd be a whole lot easier. And then, like, you could use an old pulley and, really carefully drill holes in it and make it fit on here, or something like that. Then you'd have a pretty accurate measurement. or make a jig that you could put on with a pulley. Okay, and then what we want to look at is this here. We're a little bit off there, a little bit off here, and come up with a degree, okay? And then double that number. So we'll come back in that second. All right, so I come up with 113. So it's past 90, right? 113 is what I'm coming up with on here, roughly. So 113 times 2 is 223. So if you look here, let's look at this one. This is the angle 120. It's 253 degrees at 0.050. That's what we were doing, is coming up with that portion. But the actual usable duration is 294. So like I said, we're not going to know what exactly that number is. But if we can find a cam that has a 253 degrees of duration at 0.050, then our number, or close to that, or whatever, or 223 at 0.050, it's going to be pretty close to that number. So let's look and see what angle 110 is. All right, let's look at 100. So it's 236, we're 223. Very short duration on this cam, very high lift. So we got 420 valve lift on this one, and 236 on the 100. Let's go to a smaller one yet, or a different one. We'll find it. See if I can find something close. So this one with 1.1 ratio rockers or stock rockers would be 470 lift. That's a giant cam. All right, I found something close. So this is what we're looking for here. We got 224 degrees of valve lift on an angle 90. So it's got 224 degrees of valve lift at 0.050. It's just not finishing the sentence. So this cam roughly is going to be, I would say, 260. I'm going to guess like 268 valve lift, or not lift, of duration. Okay, that's probably what the advertised duration is going to be, is about 268 roughly, and 470 lift. So what could this run in? Wow, 470 lift, 268 degrees. That's a lot of lift. That's a really high lift and really short duration. A lot of those cams that really high lift and short duration like that are really torquey cams. So it could work, but I think the 470 lift is going to want dual springs. But what if I put, I don't know if this works, I've never tried it before. What if I put this cam in an engine and ran 40 horse rockers? Use the rockers off of a 40 horse, not the whole rocker shaft assemblies, because maybe they won't work. But if I use those, then I'd have a 428 lift and 268 duration, which would be almost the same as an Engel 110, right? Engel 110's, no, it's a little bit shorter duration, a little bit about the same lift. A little bit less lift, a little bit shorter duration. That would probably work well in a regular engine if you had 40 horse rockers on it. So that's just something to think about. I'm just saying, you know, I've got all these cams and I'm just going to play around with them and see what they are, and then put a little tag. I'll just cut this out, put on a wire, and hang it from the cam, and then try another one, see what happens, and try a few of these and see what I've got, and then I'll know what I have. So anyway, that's kind of how you do your lift and duration stuff on these, you know, to figure it out. On the old cams, you guys sitting around. If you want to know what your stock cam is, you can actually do it in the car too, and then you'll get what you come up with if you do it in the car with a dial indicator like that. You can put it on the valve spring. Okay, if you put it on the top of the valve spring keeper, and you run it up and down, you're going to come up with a little bit different numbers because you're going to have the 1-to-1 already. So you're going to know what the actual this number is. So if I put this in a car and I had 1-to-1 rockers on it, yeah, I would run it, rotate it over, and I'd come up with the advertised lift. I think that's called advertised. I'm just going to get those two things confused. It would be the actual lift of the valve lift. The valve lift, that's what they call it, the valve lift. And then if I did it in the car, I'd come up with, by using the degree on the actual pulley, I'd come up with the actual duration of the cam, of the advertised duration. You come up with this number in the car. So in the car, these are the numbers you're going to have. This is for measurement purposes, okay? And that's what those numbers are on your cam specs. Hope that helps you guys. Hopefully I didn't mess this up too bad. It's just kind of confusing to kind of make a video on this, but I thought you guys might enjoy it. So anyway, it might be helpful if you're trying to figure that stuff out. You might want to use some of the information to figure it out.